Well, hey, everybody, and welcome to Central at Home. So glad you could join us today, wherever you're watching this or however you're watching. So honored you could be with us today. And today I'm with my friend. I'll call you that. You're also my pastor and my boss, but you're my friend. And so today we're going off script with Bill Markham, and pretty excited about that. So we'll get into that in just a moment. But if you're coming back off the heels of our Christmas at home experiences, wow. Those were just phenomenal. I mean, just so great. We love so many volunteers, so many hours goes into that. So if you're coming back off the heels of that, thank you so much for joining us, and just honored that you could be with us today. And so next week, we're starting a brand new series where we're breaking up with 2020. So
which we need to.
We need to do that. Yeah. We're going to do that next week. But before we do that, we're going to end the year, our final experience. And we thought we'd just kind of go off script a little bit and just talk about this past year. So before we get into that, why don't you talk a little bit about New Year's resolutions? So we're at that time. Everybody makes resolutions. Do you have any for 2021?
Well, I don't really make New Year's resolutions because I often get disappointed with myself. But if I were to make some New Year's resolutions, I think I'd love to visit some new places. I love to travel, as do you.
I do.
And so I love to see new places, things I've never been before. I also like to stretch the way I think and broaden my perspective. And so I usually try to read a book on a subject I've never actually ever read before. So I like to do that. Yep. I think I'd like to practice more gratitude. I think gratitude, I've learned this year, gratitude is actually a powerful tool to dispel and break up the despair. Yeah. And then I did think of this one. I thought, it would be really awesome if I could spend as much time invested in my relationships as I invest in screen time. That's now I've got that app that tells me how much time I spend on screen time. If we spend as much time in relationship, it would change everything.
That's scary, that one.
I know, but it would be a game changer.
Yeah. Why do you think people don't go through with their resolutions? I mean, that's the thing for all of us, right?
Well, I think there's a big gap between desire and discipline. I think a lot of us base our resolutions on our ability, and sometimes we're just not able. Yeah. Charles Duhigg has a great book called The Power of Habit, and he talks about how we just think we can keep doing the same thing and get different results, and that's insane, right? Mm-hmm. So you have to actually discipline yourself to change, and I think biblically, and those of us who follow God, it means changing our heart and our mind. But I also think we build our life on a lot of false expectations. When I was working in a factory, I remember this one time I was trying to climb up on a top shelf, and I was climbing on these boxes that I thought were full of stuff. Yeah. And they weren't. They were empty. So I got almost the top, and they all crumbled down on me. And I think that's what a lot of the mistake that a lot of us make in the world. We build our hopes and dreams on things that cannot carry us. Yeah. And I think that's what Jesus meant when he said, anyone who hears these words of mine and does what I say and follows them, puts them into practice, is like a man who built his house on the rock. And any other system is like sinking sand, shifting sand. And so, I think it's just what you're putting your hope and expectation in, or who you're putting it on. Yeah,
which is probably why for so many of us, we've been so disappointed this year, because we did, put our hopes in shifting sands. We put our hopes in government, things or vaccines or, whatever it was we put our hope in. And when it moved and shifted, we were disappointed.
Well, and I think it's unfair. Right. I think our criticism really of our leaders is unfair because they don't know either. And so they're trying to make decisions on sand. Right. So it's only when you actually believe that there's a God who's good, who loves you, who is working all things out for your best, that you can actually, with confidence, make the right move. And you have to put it into practice. You can't just think it, you got to actually do it. I think there's a lot of people who know the right thing, but you got to actually do the right thing.
That's good. Okay, so for those that are watching that want to know, they always see the fantastic job you do, and you really do a fantastic job, Pastor Bill, leading us. But why don't you talk a little bit about what has it really been like leading a church in 2020 when, take us back to February, March, everything falls apart. We come back after spring break, everything's shut down. And, we're thinking, how are we going to lead this thing? You're thinking, how am I going to lead this thing? What's it been like being a leader of this church in 2020 for real?
Yeah. The truth is that when people see me in this format, they think, wow, he's pretty confident. He's got a lot of faith. And what they don't see is the weight that we carry when no one is looking. So you know this because you work with me in this context all the time. Yeah. And I actually really want this to be meaningful for you. I agonize over that, sometimes too much. And so there's a weight that's associated with it. Yeah. It's also, we're in the building project, and there are things, I've just learned that as a leader, there are things that you will do that no one will ever really know. And I think one of the hardest parts about leading, to be honest with you, is when people criticize, and so I do feel a little bit for our leaders in government too, they criticize because they don't really know. They don't know all the information that you know. They don't know all the things you've gone through to get to that point. And so sometimes it is a difficult journey, especially when your motivation is really just to help people. Yeah. You really want the best for them. Yeah. And that's all I've ever wanted. But then you carry that. But on the flip side of that, as challenging as those things are, I actually do have incredible faith. And I see that in a lot of different ways. God, this year, has shown me again that he is faithful in the building. Like, that's a dream that started 10 years ago. And there have been many times, when I have felt like quitting. People have told me you should quit. People have told me it's impossible. It'll never happen. Roadblocks, obstacles. Like, at one point, I'm gonna have to write a book because, it's been incredibly a difficult journey in many ways. But every Saturday, I discipline myself and I go on that site and I walk around and I'm reminded, no, God, when you give a dream and we do it your way, we trust you, it does always work out. And so those are some of the things that, just I've been walking through and learning.
It's neat because I think you've been through so much life and you've done so much as a leader to know that you're constantly building on the back of this trust we have in God that he will always carry us. If he says it, he's going to do it. If he gives a dream, it's going to happen. And I love that. I think for us, like, as you're beginning a relationship with God, like, what a good challenge to know, like, he's trustworthy, like he's always going to carry us through. And I'm so even as hard as it's been, and I can only imagine how hard it's been for you too, that we're just excited that God carries us through. He always keeps his promises. And I'm excited, even in the hard stuff.
And one thing I've learned about life too is nothing great comes without testing and challenge. And this year, a lot of things have been tested for me. Like, do I really believe what I say I believe? Like, you just need to know that I take this opportunity to share with you really seriously. And I promise to never say anything that I don't actually believe, because I don't want cliches and I don't want a facade. I want the real thing. But I've been tested. Yeah. Do I really believe this? And actually, the truth is, some of the things have been stripped away from me. Yeah. Things that I thought were really important. Yeah. Now that they're gone, I'm like, oh, they weren't that important. Right. So crisis is kind of like being on an anvil, and you're being pounded, and it'll either break you or make you. I know that's a cliche. I know it, but it is actually true, because what you really believe, and I think, honestly, the number one joy in my life in 2020 is that the vision and the mission that we have as a church family was so solid and so true that nothing could shake it. We had to change our methods, but the mission and the vision stayed the same. And I'm so grateful for that.
And it's really exciting too. We talk a lot off camera about this, but just the amount of people that have stayed connected and new people that are connecting even in this just goes to show the power of the church. It goes to show the beautiful community we have that is still like committed to staying connected to God and each other. And like, we're going to fight for that no matter what. Absolutely. I love that.
Well, Jesus said it best when he said, seek first the kingdom of God and all these things will be added. If you get that part right, if you put God first in your life and you do what he says, seek first the kingdom, all these, it does. And maybe not always the way you wanted, but actually sometimes in ways that are better. Like even this building, there's a few things that I wanted that didn't happen, but they are better. Yeah. And so that's the way God works if you trust him. It's great.
Okay, so I want to go back to 2020 a little bit, talk about some of your highlights. Obviously, there was some hard things, but what would be like a highlight for you from this past year?
Yeah, well, I would say, again, the vision was true, but I also felt like we were super innovative. Like we refused to let the situation destroy our vision. And so we said, we got to do it differently, but we did that. I love that. I also really appreciate our leaders and our team, our staff team, because they've been working so hard. Yep. And again, a lot of them will never maybe get the credit or FaceTime, never be known. But they, again, have bought into this vision and this mission. And so
You have an awesome team.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
And your board.
And board as well, yeah.
So good. They dream big, and they're people of faith and prayer. And when you dream big, good things happen.
It's amazing. So what I haven't shown you yet is we had a few of our staff do a bit of a highlight to video to their own phone. So we're going to take a look at those. Here's a few of our staff, just their highlight from 2020. So let's check it out.
Awesome.
Hi, my name is Pastor Andrew, and 2 highlights for me from 2020. The first was the switch to online in March. It was amazing to see thousands of people joining us every Sunday as we navigated some very quick changes. It was amazing to see that community grow and to make connection with a lot of you. My second highlight was reopening the church in July to in-person services. To be able to welcome you all back into the building, to meet you, to see your graciousness, your kindness, the way you cared for each other. Really looking forward to 2021. It's exciting that we have over 3,000 people currently connected to Central. And we're just looking forward to growing that as we continue to care for each other and to reach into our community and meet their needs. So God bless in 2021.
Hello, my name is John Paulo, and my highlight for 2020 has to do with an event that we ran for the first time as a church. During this pandemic, of course, we're just looking for creative ways to really try and reach out to the community as best we could. So our youth pastor one day just came to us and said, "Hey, I have an idea. What if we did something for Halloween in our parking lot?" We just sort of started the conversation, nothing really too big. And quickly that idea, as we began to share it with people, started to take traction. And the idea was that instead of people going door to door, which they probably would be afraid of, we said, why don't they come to us, and why don't they come into our parking lot, and we would provide a somewhat reverse parade Halloween party celebration. And instead of them getting out of their cars, they would stay in their cars and drive through, and we would decorate our cars, and we would stand outside and wave and celebrate with them, really celebrating with the families. And we weren't trying to celebrate Halloween, or we weren't really trying to celebrate the day. We were just trying to connect with our community the best we could. So I made a few phone calls, and we got some donations, and we were able to make a ton of Halloween little candy bags. And so we thought, you know what, let's make 500 bags, because if we had maybe 150, 200 cars coming in, maybe a few kids per car, we'll have some extra. Well, from the moment we started to the moment we ended, we had nonstop traffic coming through our church. I believe that there were over 800 cars. We gave over 800 bags of candy. We had so many people come out, and it was just so good to see the smiles on the kids' faces. We were just waving them on and just saying, thanks for coming out. And the compliments that we got were incredible. People so excited, so thankful that we were able to do this during a pandemic. And to me, my heart was overjoyed, because I just saw, in the midst of a storm, in the midst of chaos for so many people, still they were able to celebrate. Still they were able to smile and get a small bag of candy. But to me, those connections, those one-on-one connections, as I looked into the car and I said hi, and people were taking pictures of the cars, and I was wearing a funny costume, and they were asking for selfies with me, and it was just amazing. And the kids, big smiles on their faces. And so to me, that was one of the highlights, this Halloween outreach that we did for our community.
My name is Jess from Central Kids, and Central Kids has a couple of exciting highlights for 2020. The first being at the beginning of the year, date night, Valentine's Day, where we got to engage 53 families, 128 kids in a fun-filled night where their parents got to go out and enjoy some special time together. The second is when COVID hit, we took our Central Kids experience online. And once we got the hang of it, we decided we wanted to care for our families even more, and decided to partner and equip with them a special package delivered directly to them with all the fun stuff for our time together. It included activities, parent cues, devotionals, and even a special surprise every month. Today, we engage 70 families and 110 kids. We love our Central Kids families.
Hey everyone, For those of you who don't know me, my name is Mike Hicks. I'm a pastor at Central, and I have attended Central all my life. 2020 has for sure been a unique year for all of us, and for us here at Central. As I navigated this year, God has been revealing himself to me in a new way. I've read many times in the Bible about fasting and praying, and this year, God called me back to fasting and praying. God's desire is for us to know him more intimately, and he wants to heal us. This sometimes takes work on our part. Sometimes God chooses to heal us instantly, and we can be free of a past trauma, pain, or even an illness. But sometimes God calls us to do some work. And this year, God has called me to do some work as I intercede, which really means to intervene on behalf of another. So I've been pushing in, spending more time praying. I've been fasting, which helps us to build a greater awareness of God as well. Fasting helps us to be less self-centered, giving Holy Spirit more of an opportunity to speak into our lives. There are a lot of good teachings on fasting and prayer. Please feel free to reach out to me if you would like any of these resources. So what has 2020 been for me? 2020 has been a time when God has been showing me how little control we actually have and how much we need him. 2020 has brought a lot of hardship, illness, and fear to many. But God has been showing me that our confidence and our hope has to be in him alone.
Yeah, I love our team. That's awesome.
So good. I think that's been one of my highlights this year, is just seeing our team come together and just see what a special group that many will never be seen, or, people won't know what they did, but I think they've spent countless hours and days just trying to help serve people, and that's been really special.
I agree.
All right, so last thing I want to talk about is, for the person going into 2021, what would you say to someone who, wants to be hopeful of this next year, but maybe for good reason is a little bit leery of putting too much stock in a great 2021? What would you want to encourage someone with, maybe as they look forward to this new year?
Yeah, well, I have been thinking a lot about that as I anticipate my own journey, and I journal quite a bit. And as I was journaling and thinking about that, a passage in the Bible came to mind for me. And it's found in the book of Philippians, which, if you know the book of Philippians, it's called the Joy Book, or the Book of Rejoicing, which is kind of interesting because it was written to a group of people who really didn't have a whole lot on the surface to rejoice about. They were suffering, they were being persecuted. Many of them had lost jobs, lost family, been disconnected, were being literally tortured and killed. And so they're asking Paul, who's going to write this letter to them, for some advice. And his advice seems a bit counterintuitive. And maybe as you listen to it as well, it'll seem counterintuitive to you. But I actually think it's how we all should approach the year 2021. And so in Philippians chapter 4, starting in verse 4, it says this, it says, "Rejoice in the Lord always." And again, I'm sure as they first read that, they're thinking like, that's kind of a strange thing to say. So he says, I'll say it again because you heard me right. Rejoice. That's the appropriate response, even in the face of suffering. And let your gentleness be evident to all. Man, if we could just do that on social media, the Lord is near. And then hear this, do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. Why would he say that? Because God is our only hope. He is the rock that we build our life on. And if you do that, he says, the peace of God, yes, it will transcend all understanding. It will not make sense. It will blow your mind. But if you do this, that peace will guard your heart and your mind. Man, it means that you can go to bed, sleep at night, and wake up every day with purpose. And then finally, brothers and sisters, and this is so good, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. And I got thinking, how much of my mental space, my mental capacity is filled up with things on this list as opposed to things that are not. And man, that's a game changer. So he says, finally, whatever you've learned or received or heard from me or seen in me, put it into practice. Again, for us, following Jesus is more than a philosophy, more than a theory. It's actually a way of life, a way of loving God and others. And then the God of peace will be with you. And so how do you respond moving into 2021? Rejoice. How do you do that? by trusting in a God who is great and experiencing his peace. And that is the game changer. And so I wish that for you this year.
So good. I love that, God of peace. I think that's, if there was ever like something to hope for someone, is that they would experience that, because there's nothing like that in the storm, knowing God's got it, So that's so good. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think, and just a final thought, when we're afraid of death, we don't truly live.
Yeah.
And I think the only way to reverse that is to truly live in God's way and experience his peace.
Yeah.
So,
that's been so evident, right? Well, I want to thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you, Bill, for just leading us from me to you as your, maybe even just from a friend to you. I want to thank you for just leading us with such bold, just courage and being courageous through, what could easily be a time where you could pull back and be afraid, and you've led us forward. So grateful for you.
Thank you.
As a friend and as a leader. So also just want to encourage you, if you are, again, off the heels of Christmas at home, or if it's your first time in a long time, and you'd like to get connected to this community, we do want to encourage you to do that. There's nothing like being connected. And we want to help you if we can on that journey. If you'd like to do that, why don't you head over to centralcc.ca/connect, or you could text the word central to 905-937-5610, or you could scan the QR code as well on the screen. And we'll just do anything that we can to try to help you get connected. There's several ways that you can do that, but we do want to challenge you to stay connected to God and each other, because that really is the way to thrive. Also want to encourage you, if you would like to partner with us in just making this vision and this mission keep moving forward, you can do that. Easiest way to do that is by heading over to centralcc.ca/give, and you can set up a one-time gift or regular ongoing giving. And you also have till December 31st if you would like to get in on 2020 for a tax receipt purposes. That is available to you. But again, just so grateful for you and our church family for just, we have such a generous church. We really do. And we can't do what we do without you. So thank you for being just the amazing, generous church that you are. Last thing we want to do is just invite you to come back and join us next week. I want to show you a little bit of a teaser for a brand new series that we're starting next week. Why don't you check this out?
Dear 2020,
we need to talk. I'm not sure how to say this, but this isn't working.
I'm tired. I'm afraid. I've let you in and you've cost me everything.
my dreams, my peace of mind, my sanity, and you're not changing.
So I am. I'm moving on.
The cost is just too high. So I guess this is goodbye.
I've got a life to live.
And I'm gonna live it.
And I'm gonna live it.
I'm gonna live it.
Well, Pastor Bill, would you do us the honor? You do this every week. This is, I think, for some of us, our favorite part of every. Would you bless our church family this year as we kind of end the year and move into 2021?
Yeah. And so I just want to thank you first. I do love and appreciate each and every one of you. Even if I've never met you, you are a part of our church family and you belong. And if you feel like you're alone, I want you to know that we're here for you and we can do this together. But I do bless you. I do bless you that the truth is that even in the face of difficult times and situations, there is a God who is in control. There's a God who brings order to our chaos if we're willing to follow in his way. I bless you with the truth that you can actually have peace even in the storm because you've built your life on a solid rock, something that will hold you and sustain you through everything you experience. So may 2021 be filled with God's very best as you trust him, not just in thinking, but also in your action. And may we together this year learn what it really means to love God and let him love us. Teach us to love ourselves so that we can love others. With that, I bless you in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.